So, welcome everyone. So, this is today's agenda. Okay. In today's agenda, we are going to review the important topics in CIPM session. Sorry, that's a typo. And the different DPO roles and responsibility, the CIPM certification relevance to the DPDP Act, and we're going to touch upon some exam prep discussion and how to clear this exam in 30 days and CIPM mock exam questions. Okay, and we have a dedicated Q&A planned for both these sessions. So that's the agenda for today's session. Okay, so a quick overview about InfosecTrain. We are an institute started in 2016 and one of the finest in security and data privacy set of trainings. These are our endorsements. We have been in the business for more than, I think, 5 to 6 years now, and quite a renowned institution when it comes to data security and data privacy trainings. Our trusted clients. We have many corporate trainings which we conduct throughout the year. So, why InfosecTrain? We have flexible mode of training, certified and experienced instructor, tailor-made training, and post-training support as well. Okay. So, to start with, there are three important variants in IAPP certification. One is the first is a CIPPE, second is a CIPM, and third is a CIPT. Okay, the first certification is about the different data privacy laws and regulation that exist. Okay, okay. So in CIPP, we will be looking after different data privacy law specific variants. For example, we have GDPR, which is CIPPE, and we have CIPP US, CIPP Canada, and CIPP Asia. And in InfosecTrain, we are focusing on GDPR, which is sort of a gold standard when it comes to the data privacy laws around the world, right? And the course which you're going to focus today is CIPM, which is Certified Information Privacy Manager. And it's the only course that is available in the market that focuses on the data privacy operations as well as the program management, right? It's the only course that exists to demonstrate capability of any individual towards a privacy program management. Okay, that's why the certification has a very unique value to demonstrate your privacy leadership skills. Okay, and CIPT is a privacy technologist course. It's a very interesting course in terms of how you apply technology, privacy, embed privacy part of the technology, and how do you actually understand the touch points when it comes to the technology aspects. And that is what we do in CIPT. We are launching our first batch of CIPT in coming March. So we have got a lot of demand towards this particular certification. So we are going to launch this on the coming months. Okay. And if you get 2 out of the 3 certifications, and CIPPE is a mandate of which, and if you get either CIPM or CIPT, you will be able to get FIP, provided you show 3 years of experience in data privacy and sort of accredited by 2 to 3 references. Then you will be able to get this highest certification in data privacy, which is the IAPP Fellow of Information Privacy. Okay, it's a fantastic recognition to have this in the market, and it truly separates you from rest of the people in terms of data privacy ladder. Okay. So why CIPM? It's a very important question. So CIPM actually is a globally recognized industry standard, and it demonstrates that you're a leader in privacy and program administration. So in this course we are going to study everything that is required for a privacy program manager or a data protection officer, or we can call with different names in different regions, but this is one certification that is focused for middle management to senior leadership roles. Okay. And you'll be recognized as part of an allied group of knowledgeable, capable, and dedicated data protection practitioners. Okay. And holding a CIPM elevates your leadership profile among your colleagues. And CIPM is a key benchmark among top employees. Needless to say this, because if you go to any hiring, if you can check in LinkedIn, the minimum mandate that you will see is always CIPM and CIPPE. Okay, even though CIPP is a GDPR certification, you will see CIPP-E plus CIPM as a combination that is required in many regions for data protection officer. Okay, especially in the European Union, if you want to sort of apply for a data protection officer role, you will see this is a mandate. Even IAPP recognize this combination of CIPP-E plus CIPM as a DPO ready certification. Okay, so that is the reason I always encourage all my candidates to get this holistic flavor of, one, you study the law, the second, you're going to apply the law on a business programs, right? So how do you apply your data privacy requirements, which is stated in the law, into your day-to-day personal data lifecycle? So these two combination are fantastic combination to excel your career into different heights, right? And that's the reason I always recommend for to go this combo pack of CIPP-E plus CIPM, which is the best option for to give yourself in 2024. Okay, and about this course, so what you will learn in this course is to operationalizing privacy, turning your policies into programs, right? That's the intent of this entire CIPM course. And what we're going to do, we're going to make data privacy regulation sort of work for your organization by understanding how to implement them in a day-to-day operation, and learn to create the different components of your privacy program, right from your privacy vision, mission, in terms of your privacy strategy. How do you define your governance? How do you create your policies procedure? How do you define your controls? How do you evaluate the program? How do you implement embed part of your product program development, right? And how do you respond to a data subject request? How do you respond to a data breach, right? And how do you monitor the program? How do you ensure training and awareness criteria is completed? All these things are the course curriculum of CIPM course. The course has 90 questions. The exam has 90 questions, out of which 75 are scored, and you have to score out of 100 to 500. A score of 300 will help you to clear the certification. So it's not a linear mathematics of 60%, because every question may have a different variable score, and out of 90, only 75 questions are generally scored. So you never know which question will carry what marks, and certain question may not carry any marks, right? So that's something we don't need to worry about. But a rule of thumb which I say to all my candidates is that if you target 75% consistently in all your practice, you are definitely ready for the exam, right? I give a lot of strategy when it comes to clearing the certification. I let them know what kind of prep which is required, because it's $1 billion question for all the candidates who are preparing for any difficult certifications, right? Am I ready for the exam? This question is going to come to all of you. It came to me as well for all the certification when I did, right? So that's where I will guide you with my experience, and I help candidates clear these certifications day in day out. I've been conducting trainings for the last 2 years, and I've helped more than 100 candidates clear their IAPP certifications. So that's something which you can definitely trust upon me to help you clear the certification for sure. And you have so at the time of writing this exam, it generally cost you around $550, and you need to pay $250 as a certification maintenance fee, or $275 uh, uh, as a membership fee. Okay, it is between 250 275. You have to choose one. Okay, membership fee gives you the access to all the materials, webinars, and training videos, or whatever is there in IAPP portal. You get access within that $275. It is for 1 year, whereas $250 is a certification maintenance fee, which doesn't give you any sort of access, but rather it's a fee towards maintaining the certification for 2 years. So this is for 2 years, and $275 just for 1 year, but you get all the IAPP exclusive access. Okay, but the criteria is you have to pay $550 plus this 250 or 275. So which takes the equation towards minimum 800, correct? So, but if you are from India and you're gonna take up this via InfosecTrain, you're gonna get a subsidized price where you will get the exam voucher plus 1 year membership fee plus the materials, which is the textbook as well as the study guide which you're going to use during a session, and you're going to get my training for 32 hours all included within the subsidized price, which is going to be less than this 800 in total. That's the reason I usually recommend. It's a great win-win opportunity. When I started my trainings, sorry, when I did my certification, there were no such options, right? Which almost I paid that $800 to get that exam voucher and get my certification through, correct? But now you have a great opportunity just to pay the same amount and plus get the training and everything included part of it. So this is the difference between CIPM at InfosecTrain to any other vendor. So we offer 32 hours, which is a clear USP in InfosecTrain with any other training institute. So we offer you 32 hours, but we don't provide recorded session because it's an IAPP property, and IAPP doesn't allow recording the sessions. Okay, and so that's the reason it's a very interactive session. We provide you ample time to discuss, and there was not a single question that has not been answered in any of my sessions, and it will be a very pragmatic and practical discussion oriented. So I get people from different backgrounds. We spend a lot of time for a practical case studies in terms of how do we apply this into different business segments. So the interaction is what makes the training experience a different unique one. Okay, and guaranteed lowest price. You can check this price with any other marketplace anywhere in the world in terms of, do you get this price in terms of 32 hours? You will not find none. And approved and certified instructor with FIP, that's mine. Career oriented skill based course, it's a very practical course. I will include a mock exam, and part of this course you'll get IAPP ebook plus notes, exam voucher plus 1 year membership, everything included within that price which you're going to get. Okay, and what's the differentiator? It's a practical and quality preparation. See, the reason why we started with 32 hours is that when I did the certification, I realized this is a bit of complex topic for someone to start with, right? Just rushing this course content in 12 hours in a matter of just 3, 4 sessions, you will not be able to absorb the content. You will not be able to relate to the topics. So you need time to go back, read, and come back to me and ask questions on how do you apply on a day-to-day basis, right? That time is required to understand a complex topic like data privacy. That's the reason we're giving 32 hours, and with that you can confidently go for the exam within 1, 2 weeks after the completion of the course. And that too, I've seen my candidates clear on the 4th week of training itself. That's the reason I say that you start reading the textbook, you will be more than ready at the end of 4th week to go for the exam immediately. Okay, part of this we will study a lot of use cases. Okay, it's a very case study oriented course. You will get templates like how to do a DPIA. I will share a completed DPIA, records of processing activity, transfer impact assessment. All these things I'll be sharing so that it becomes a very practice oriented course, not just theory. And we will have a dedicated exam strategy session. I'll be helping you to towards how do you strategize your exam, and what are the do's and don'ts, what are the tips towards clearing this exam. And I'll also be supporting you till our WhatsApp group will remain active till the last person clears this exam. Okay, I'll also support someone who's starting their career. I'll support them in terms of how do you plan your career. Okay, this is more of counseling and guidance, not any job sort of stuff, because anyone who promises that, they are all sort of faking that. No one gives any job assistance in actual true life, right? It all depends on your own skill, as well as it all depends on your hard work, correct? So we are going to start a batch on 27 Jan, and it will be between 7 to 11 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Okay. So if you are opting for this course, you should go ahead and block in this session. You can reach out to the InfoSec train team so that they will help you to get yourself registered. Okay. So that all being said, I'm going to jump into the course content. Okay. So how the CIPM is relevant to the DPDPA. Okay, DPDPA is the Indian Data Protection, Digital Data Protection Bill. So now it's an act. So how this is relevant to the course, right? So actually, the course, as I told you, is a regulation agnostic one, which means if you study CIPM, you will be able to work on any data privacy laws around the world, right? That being said, we cover everything in terms of a holistic data privacy program management, right? So for a program management, it sits in terms of fulfilling the data privacy legal obligations, correct? So the legal obligation, there will be a 10-20% delta across different data privacy laws, but in short, it is more or less has the same components. Okay, so that is the crux of why we go for CIPM. We sort of understand how to operate in different data privacy laws. How do you rationalize and create a framework which will help you to cater to any data privacy laws around the world, right? So these are the important elements when you go for a CIPM certification, right? So if you want to launch a data privacy program, right, and these are the steps which I'm trying to recommend, that these are the important elements as a data privacy manager or a data protection officer you need to know, and this is what exactly you need to build a privacy program under DPDPA as well, which is the Indian Data Privacy Act, right? So you need to understand your business landscape, okay, and operation on employee and customer personal data. There is one more personal data, which is your vendor personal data. So identify your legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations and develop a applicability matrix for data controller and processor roles, right? So here our idea is to understand our legal and regulatory requirements. We may be operating in different regions. There could be a business oriented, a segment oriented obligation. For example, you might be from health sector or from banking sector or from financial regulation sector. So it depends, like your sector also drives in terms of some specific obligations, right? And you may need to do a gap assessment. This is the typical activity many Indian firms are doing right now to assess the business organization process in terms of DPDPA requirements, right? This is the first important activity. And from there, you will start understanding the gaps. And to fix that, you need to develop your privacy framework. And privacy framework consists of your policies, procedures, your process, and how do you sort of ensure you have the set of documented instruction for your employees to handle personal data, right? So this is a very important step, and part of that, or sometimes we define separately your privacy strategy, right? Your privacy strategy again is a very critical component, and it helps you to define your organization structure, the roles and responsibility of different critical components of your organization. It includes your privacy team, the different business stakeholders, right? And you may define your operating model. All these things comes part of your privacy strategy, right? And privacy awareness is one of the component where people may least give you a priority in some organization, but fact is data privacy is more of a cultural change. It's in terms of how people view privacy, right? It's going to be changed in terms of how we have handled data in the past to what the law requires now to do, right? So it's a big cultural shift. So people need to made aware about the importance. The penalties are very, very high. It's 250 crores, but 250 crores is not the ceiling. It could be even more than 250 crores, depends on the infringement count and categories, right? So that's the reason we have to start with the data privacy awareness program parallelly, so that every stakeholder are in line with the vision of the data privacy program. And developing a personal data inventory is also one of the very important activity that has to be initiated in the very early stages. This is nothing but getting the visibility of the personal data. What kind of personal data comes into the organization? What are the different channels? It could come from your website, it could come from a retail section, or it could come from your mobile channel, or it could come from an application, right? So there are multiple ways a personal data can come into an organization. So we need to have that visibility, why we are collecting this data, when and why and how we are collecting this data. All these informations are very, very important, because if you do not know this particular segment, the entire program will be very futile. And that's the reason visibility of the personal data is the most critical component of your privacy program. If you do this right, majority of the component will fall in place. If you actually do not do this activity correctly, you will find a lot of difficulty in terms of doing the subsequent activity. Okay, and once you have the inventory and once you identify the suitable controls, you need to implement those controls into the organization. One of the important assessments which is mandated by the various data privacy laws around the world, including the Indian DPDPA Act, is the DPIA, which is Data Protection Impact Assessment. So during this course, I will give you an overview of what is the difference between a DPIA and a PIA. It's a very important question for you to understand. There is so much of wrong information that circulates in the public, in the internet, and people often gets confused with these terminologies, right? So you'll get absolute clarity what are these terms and how to apply each of these assessments in what conditions. Okay, and you need to manage data subject rights, and you need to manage your data breach management, and also you need to look at your continuous improvement, right? This is in short a detailed privacy program management, right? So this is what exactly you need to do for your Indian DPDP Act as well. So if you do the sequence, you're going to definitely have a robust data privacy program in place. That's the reason our CIPM course is exactly touching all these topics in terms of 10 modules. Our 10 module is a replica of what is required under any data privacy laws in the world, including the Indian DPDP Act. That's the reason I say this course is very, very relevant towards the privacy program management in your organization. And these are the DPO's roles and responsibilities. So DPO have very important obligations in an organization. So if you are gonna become a DPO, you need to know what could be your responsibility in that particular organization. So you need to ensure the fiduciary, which is the controller, and the data principal, the data subjects are informed about their data subject rights, which is very, very important, which is part of the transparency requirements, where whenever we collect the data, we need to inform the data subjects, these are your rights. This is going to be the first important move, which we do typically in the name of data privacy notices. When we give the notice, we need to make them understand these are your data subject rights. This is the reason we are collecting the data, and this is what we are going to do with the data. This is how long we retain the data. This is how we will secure and while transferring the data, this is how you secure the data as well. So these are some of the critical elements needs to be informed through the privacy notices. And we will be training the employees on DPDP Act on a regular basis and conducting regular assessments and audits to ensure DPDP Act compliance. So these are very important activities for the DPO, because as a significant fiduciary, there is a mandate to conduct a data privacy audit. So even otherwise, even if the organization is not a significant fiduciary, it's important for them to do continuous assessment in the organization poster to know how do they sort of comply with these requirements on an ongoing basis, right? And you will be acting as a single point of contact, okay, between the company and the authority. Okay, so this is very, very critical. For example, if you have if you are a DPO, the organization will not directly interact. Like for example, the CEO may not interact with the law enforcement agency. It is typically the data protection officer will become a single point of contact with the data protection to the regulators, right? That's the reason you will becoming a very important focal person either to the data subject or to the regulators. It's a very critical role in terms of liaising the relationship between them. And you will be ensuring the data subjects required requests are fulfilled. So not necessarily the DPO will be doing all these activity, but the accountability of all these activity will stay with the DPO. In a large organization, the DPO may not be sitting and fulfilling each and every data subject request, but rather the DPO is equivalent to sometimes a C-suite level, and they will be ensuring that we do not miss in terms of a timeline. right? The timeline is 30 days, and we need to respond within the 30 days for the data subject request. So in terms of entire monitoring of the process, the capability building, and ensuring that we fall within the compliance limit is something which is critical for the organization, because the moment you breach this, you may get a penalty for that, correct? So that is the reason this is a very important component. And draw the institution attention and failure to comply with the applicable data protection rules. So if the organization is making mistakes, it could be a simple marketing activity, or in terms of a procurement service, or if you're migrating to a cloud, there could be multiple business activity that happens within the organization, right? So part of this activity, if the organization makes any mistakes, right, it is important that DPO points out this mistake to ensure that the mitigation happens at a stage where you're able to contain the damage, right? So this is very, very important. That's the reason DPO is become a touch point for all this decision making, right, which is going to happen in the future. They'll be part of those discussion where a product development, or if it's going to be purchased from the market, or if you're going to have a important migration activity, or we are going to move to cloud, all these activity now, the data privacy officer will, or data protection officer will become a very important touch point. Okay, so that's important, which the organization also need to provide that interface. Okay, and responding to the data principles to inform that about their personal data is being used. So this is done via privacy notice. And finally, maintaining the records of all data processing activity conducted by the company. So records of processing activity, okay, records of processing activity becomes an important obligation. Reason, tomorrow, okay, so this becomes an important obligation. Tomorrow, the regulatory authorities, if they knock the company's door, they will ask mainly three important things. One, your documented policy procedures. They may ask your inventory, which is your records of processing activity. And third, they may ask you in terms of your data protection impact assessments, which have been conducted, right? So these three areas are very, very critical areas to ensure they are in place. This is something like information that you need to keep it in mind. Like if there is any complaint, these three documents are very, very critical for you to have clear audit trail, as well as in terms of your documentation has to be on the teeth. So these are the important roles and responsibility of the data protection officer. So I'm going to move into the privacy operational life cycle. Okay. So privacy operational life cycle, if I have to break down the CIPM course, I have to divide it into two major components. The first component is about your privacy governance. So when I say privacy governance, we will understand your touch points of personal data handled by different departments within the organization. It could be HR, it could be finance, it could be sales and marketing, it could be R&D. Likewise, there are many departments which definitely act as a personal data touch point, right? So we understand the importance of the role that needs to be played by the data privacy team there, and we will try to understand what are the how do you identify the different legal and regulatory requirement, how do we need to monitor them, and then finally in terms of defining the roles and responsibility, including the DPO. This is the governance part. And then the course moves on to the data lifecycle part. So the personal data lifecycle is divided into four important stages, which is assess, protect, sustain, and respond. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of what are these four major phases. Assess is basically understand your organization. So it starts with your identification of personal data. Once you identify it, you classify it, and then you will be able to have understanding of what kind of controls to apply, right? So during assess phase, it starts with your identification, and then it goes into the different set of assessment activity that could gap assessment, or it includes your DPIA, PIA, transfer impact assessment, legitimate use assessment, right? These are different assessments that happens within assess phase. right? And once you assess, you are going to find out multiple gaps in across different processing activity that requires to be rectified, which is where you will come up with your policies, procedures, and then update. If not, it will be in the current cycle, it will be updation of the corresponding documentation, right? So that will be in the protect phase, where we will be defining the changes or create the required elements in the documentation part, and then apply the controls on the environment. So this could be the different information security controls, data protection controls that is required to protect the personal data in the entire life cycle, right? So once we complete the protect phase, then we move to the sustain phase. So in the sustain phase, we will be in what activities are required to sustain the privacy program, which is what we do with the training and awareness. So training and awareness is a very pivotal activity to ensure we sustain the quality as well as effectiveness of the privacy program. So, and the second important activity is your continuous monitoring in the form of your audits, your assessments. Again, when I say assessments, these could be your standard specific assessment. It could be like ISO 27701, or any kind of audits which we do can come under the sustain phase. Okay. Finally, the respond phase of the data lifecycle. This involves in terms of how do you respond to an event. This event could be a data subject rights request, or it could be a data breach. Okay, in both these situations, how do you handle this particular element? So we go deep in terms of understanding what are the different data subject rights, how do you respond to them, what are the critical elements which you need to know part of this data subject rights fulfillment. Similar in the case of data breach management. So in the data breach management, in terms of how do you identify a breach, what is the difference between a security incident or a security breach versus a data privacy breach, right? So when I say data privacy, it's mean personal data breach. So what's the difference between them, and how do you integrate personal data breach management into your existing incident management programs, right? What are the critical elements associated with that? So these are some of the important topics that we go through part of the response phase. So this is in short in terms of the data life cycle, which we'll be studying in depth in terms of our CIPM course. Okay. So next is the governance model. When I said that we will be dividing the chapter into two parts, so one part is the governance, right? In the governance, we will be looking into the organization vision, mission, the privacy policy that we develop, the roles and responsibility, how do you embed privacy part of the processes, is what we look into the data governance framework, right? Data privacy framework as well, what we call. And in this, we have three important models. The first model, what we call it as a centralized model. Okay, centralized model is a common where we have organization with a single line of command, where you have a top management representation, or for example, let's take there is a chief privacy officer or a data privacy officer at a central office, and they take all the decision regarding data privacy in the organization, and it is just implemented into all different parts of the organization, and there is no further delegation of decision making. It's a unilateral decision making. This is what we call it as a top down approach, or we call it as a centralized approach. So suitable for a set of a large organization without any custom modification happening at a regional level or a different unit level, right? So this is suitable for these kind of organization where a single line of command is enough, and this is what we call it as a top down approach. And the second is a bottom up approach, what we call it as a local or decentralized model, where the decision making is left to the operational level, where the people who are acting on the ground, they have provide the key inputs of how to define this, as well as it's a completely decentralized model. Everyone collaborates in terms of making it effective. So this is very suitable for small companies, startups, basically where do not have a fixed hierarchy line of command, and it helps them to quickly iterate over the requirements, and in terms of make it very effective as well. And there is a third model which we call it as a hybrid model, which is combination of both your centralized as well as decentralized. This is what we call it as hybrid model. Many of the international organizations run in the hybrid model, which means they have a global data privacy office, and then they have a specific regional data privacy centers. So the global privacy office will create global practices, but this will definitely vary according to the different regions. Let's take a big company that operates across multiple continents around the world. It may have a one global privacy office that creates the organization's vision, mission, best practices. But again, when it comes to the specific compliance requirement, it varies. If they could operate in GDPR, they could operate in India, and they could operate in US. So this will vary, and the regional centers will again have the level of powers to modify, customize their practices towards the regional laws, right? So this is an example of hybrid model. So this what we understand part of the privacy governance model. It's one of the important concept in the CIPM. If you look at, there are multiple levels of intersection that happens in a privacy framework. We create, for example, when I do consulting, we typically create around 25 different set of documents in terms of data privacy program. So it looks, the number count looks very high, but there is a rationale towards that. Okay, there are different components which needs to be looked into, right, starting from your privacy notice, your data processing agreement, your policies, and we have a main policy, and then you have supporting procedures. How do you respond to a data subject rights? How do you manage a data breach, right? How do you conduct your data protection impact assessment? How do you discover your data? How do you maintain your inventory of records, right? Likewise, there are different sections within the framework which needs to be specifically addressed. Okay, that's the reason framework is a very very critical component. There's just a demo of what I found on internet. So this slide is again a very very important slide, which tries to give you the flavor of many data privacy laws exist in the world. Okay, as a, a data protection officer or a data privacy professional, how do you bring all these different requirements and ensure that compliance is met, at the same time reduce your effort, right? It's a very complex question. The reason is every law has their own way of demanding compliance requirements, right? And but good thing is that there are 70% or 75%, there is a common thread in among all the data privacy laws, right? So that helps us towards creating something called a rationalized framework, where we pick up the most stringent law among this if you're operating in multiple regions, and we try to pick up the most stringent law and set it as a baseline, and whatever specific requirements around the different data privacy laws around the world, we try to consider them as outliers and then fulfill them one by one as a specific use case. So this methodology is called as rationalization, and it's one of the very important topic in CIPM. How do you focus this problem statement of catering to multiple data privacy laws around the world, right? So let me give you some simple examples. For example, in California, there is a specific right which is like, do not sell my data, right? This is one of the rights. In Brazil, there is a specific data privacy right, right to anonymize the data, right? And in other data privacy laws as well, there could be some specific use cases. Like in India, DPDPA Act, we have consent manager, which is a very unique concept only to the Indian ecosystem, right? So likewise, in Brazil, the law demands a data protection officer for each and every organization. Okay, so there could be some specific outliers in different laws. That is what we focus and try to ensure we met the compliance with the with the minimized effort. This is what we called as a concept of rationalization. Okay, so with that, this is what the different components of that rationalization. So there are common elements across many data privacy laws. It could be consent, the privacy notice, the option of giving choice while taking a decision, right to access, right to correction and deletion, and purpose limitation, data retention limit, and securing the personal data. These 8 components almost remains the same in 95% of data privacy laws, right? So apart from that, there could be some unique ones. For example, in GDPR, we have right against automated decision making, right to portability. You may not find these two rights in many of the data privacy laws around the world, right? Likewise, in GDPR, we have 6 lawful bases, right? In other countries, you may not find that many lawful bases. GDPR is a very comprehensive law, right? When it comes to international data transfer, you have so many instruments, a defined part of GDPR, which you can use for international data transfer. Likewise, you need to understand these nuances, and we describe this in a brief to understand the different elements of different data privacy laws. Okay, so with this topic, I probably wind up for today's discussion.